the keys are to the glory days at the stick. From who's got it better than us to brick by brick. It's always the 49ers way, from off-season to game day. Yeah, we talk back. It's the 49ers cutback.
It's 49ers Cutback Podcast time. Welcome to the show. New subscriber to start. Wow. Thank you and welcome.
Lab baby door? The baby door? I'm not sure what it was, but it was glorious. Thank you for joining. Welcome to the TCC. And
there you go.
Ant, we got an interesting episode today, don't we? We got some draft gems on the defensive side of the football to talk about.
Yeah, draft gems on the defensive side of the football, and there's a lot of interesting names all throughout this draft. And, you know, John Lynch kind of mentioned that in his presser today about this being a very deep draft. He didn't feel like it was top heavy, and that picking where they were picking, it's going to be different than what they're used to, waiting until 61. But he felt that they could get a lot of good players. And he even mentioned the possibility of trading back from 61. So I thought that was something interesting. Maybe they're going to, you know, be able to pick up some players. But Alex, the mention of how many players they have under contract with is just over 75, meaning they don't really have the roster spots for that many players. So you can't go into the draft and draft much more than the draft picks they already have.
No, you really can't. You can't do a whole lot of that, Ant. You're kind of handicapped and handcuffed in terms of how much room and how much flexibility. You know, he did talk about that. He didn't talk about a whole lot of other things in a shocking development. So everyone is just going to be waiting on pins and needles to find out what's going on and what's happening there. And it was Labby Door. So Labby Door.
Oh, nice. There we go.
Welcome to the TCC. I'm seeing Freddie Mac saying Jermaine Johnson after the Debo trade. Look. We're going to talk about draft gems.
Yeah.
We're talking about guys you're going to get late in this draft and pick 150 and beyond, and potentially undrafted free agent targets. That's what we're going to stick to tonight.
Yeah, I mean, if you have stuff you want to talk about later, we can do a Q&A a little bit afterwards. We're not going to get too much into that, but we're going to talk about these players. There's a lot of good ones, Alex, and the first one I'm going to start out with is a guy with an extreme amount of athleticism from the linebacker position or edge rush position, depending on how you view him, and that's Amari Barno, 6'4", 237 pounds from Virginia Tech. But a guy that ran a 4.3 at that size, 6'4", 237, can run a 4.3, which means he can play anywhere you want him to play at the linebacker position, off the edge as an edge rusher. He's an explosive athlete with elite speed. He's a developing pass rusher, so if you're looking at him as an edge guy, right now he would need to be a situational pass rusher that could eventually develop into a three-down guy. And then he could play in the 4.3 as an outside linebacker. I mean, it's not like he's out of the question to be able to play, you know, the outside linebacker role for the 49ers. So he's somebody that's interesting. The questions for him are strength, and that's mainly when it comes to the edge rushing portion of the game, and then setting the edge in that area as well. That's something that he's got to work on. He's got a little bit more of a slight frame with the 237 pounds, but he'd be a big linebacker as an outside linebacker that could possibly come in and be an eventual replacement for either Azeez Al-Shire or Dre Greenlaw. He'd have to develop a little bit more in the run fits, like he'd be a developmental guy, but the 49ers have shown before they'll take a safety and move him to linebacker. Why wouldn't they take a potential edge rush prospect with that kind of speed and move him to linebacker?
Look, this is a solid first place to start, Ant, for this, because Amari Barno does have a lot of flexibility. There's a lot of potential there. It's actually oozing off of him on film. You can see it. The problem right now for a lot of teams is just, where do you put him, right? It's just he can do so many things. There's so many options. Where do you begin, right? It's almost overwhelming as a coaching staff because of how you can fit him in. Now, luckily for the San Francisco 49ers, they thrive with this kind of thing. Like these types of players with this type of skill set that can do these types of things makes sense in San Francisco. They have an idea of how to utilize guys with versatile skill sets who can do a lot of different things, who show the explosiveness as an edge rusher, that also show some ability to be able to play in a linebacker spot and run fit into the box and have the athleticism to make you believe that this guy maybe could be someone who can go out and cover in space. So that provides options and opportunities. And when options and opportunities present themselves, then DeMeco Ryans and this coaching staff and the 49ers feel like they have something on their hands that no one else is going to be able to replicate or duplicate, which is versatility, flexibility, and a variety of different ways to go about handling it. So Amari Barno, man, is solid. It's a solid name. It's a great place to start with this because this is a guy who's going to be super late in this draft, despite the fact that he has incredible skill sets and a very high ceiling.
Yeah, you got to love those traits that he has. I mean, the speed at that size, there's not very many people walking, this earth that can do the things that he can do as far as running and being able to move athletically. I think anytime you can have an opportunity to add that player and then develop them, I mean, you have potential to add him anywhere. And there's going to be somebody else we talk about later on that can do similar things. I mean, this is literally one of those guys that if you decided he was going to be a safety, he could develop into a safety. If you said he was going to be a linebacker, he could do that. Or if he's a edge rusher, he can do that. So there's just so much versatility there that you would be able to create your own position for this guy. And I think anytime you can add a player late that has those traits, that's their opportunity to make the team, an opportunity to make an impact on your team.
You are correct there, sir. You are correct there. Look, the next guy I'm going to go to is actually a name that actually might be familiar for TCC people. I don't know about 49ers fans in general, but for the TCC, for the Cutback crew, this is a name that we have brought up and have talked about. And the only reason I want to bring this up and talk about it is because 49ers have already met with said player, and this is a guy who's going late in drafts, and that's Sam Webb, the cornerback prospect out of Missouri Western State, who's big, but may be a guy that is looking to translate potentially at the safety position and can do some things there. The Niners have met with him, so there's definitely interest there. After watching the film, there's definitely something. I understand what they see. Size, speed, certain things that he does on the football field, they feel could translate into their system. Now, is this the most likely of all of the names, I think, to be the diamond in the rough? Immediately? No. But could this be a guy that they believe could be a gem or a diamond in the rough in a few years? You just need some polish and some shine, Ant. Possibly. That's why they've already talked to him. That's why they've already looked at him. And I understand, based on the film and what I've seen of a guy like Sam Webb, why the Niners have taken a look at it, or at least intrigued.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, he started at San Jose State, so they've had him in the Bay Area and got a good look at him. He was at their pro day as well,
True.
The local pro day, so they got to see him work out. And anytime you're talking about a 6'2" corner at this point in what the 49ers do, you're thinking about a guy that's a transition possibly to a safety, because this is a late round guy that is not going to come in and be able to start as a cornerback, but could potentially develop into a safety. And we're seeing the 49ers move players from positions. They go ahead and either grab somebody that's a safety and then they move them to linebacker, or now they're potentially going to get corners, whether they draft them or sign them as undrafted free agents and move them to safety, because you get that elite skill set that you need, because you want your safeties to be able to cover. The best way to get guys that can cover is have the frame to be able to handle the extra weight to play safety, all the while being able to have the coverage skills you need, to go up and cover a tight end in the slot. As these tight ends get more athletic and are used more in the passing game, you're going to need more athletic safeties to be able to cover them. The days of the box safety are probably going away. You need guys that are more flexible and being able to go up and cover in nickel and dime situations. And I think that's what the 49ers are looking for. So they're kind of scratching the surface on some of these guys. And that's why we've talked about a guy like Tyreeq Woolen. And this isn't an episode for him, but that's why we've talked about him changing positions.
True.
A potential corner, but with the size, could be a nice safety for someone in the league.
You are not wrong there, my guy. That is accurate. And it's exciting. It's exciting to know that there's these prospects and these guys that exist out there in space that the 49ers are definitely going to be looking at and could do some different things. Who's the next guy on your list that you're looking at in terms of just gem in general, whether that's a few years from now and needs some polish and some shine, or whether that's a guy that could potentially step in day one and maybe shock the world?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Tyreeq Smith, another edge rusher, 6'3", 255 pounds out of Ohio State, a 5-star recruit coming out of high school into college. He's got a lot of athletic ability. He's also got very good bend, good hands, and good awareness. Those are all things that show up on film. He's a guy that when he's right, he's getting after it in a big way. But when he's not right, he doesn't look the same. We know that he battled COVID a little bit, and that hurt his production this last year. But he's definitely a guy that's falling in that 4th to 5th round range, but has the potential, that 5-star potential that you saw coming out of high school, in the way that he moves and the way he bends and the way he pass rushes, that you could still, get this guy. Now, what I do like is the size too, 6'3", 255, a guy that would be able to set the edge and be able to play all 3 downs. This isn't a situational pass rusher like we talked about with Amari, Barno, and we'll talk about with other guys. This is a guy that would be able to do it all 3 downs. You put him in the 49er system, opposite of Nick Bosa, where he's able to develop under Chris Kasarik and Darryl Tapp for a couple of years. This guy could be an absolute steal and a gem. We could be talking about him the same way we talk about some of the other guys that are rotational pieces right now.
Yeah, you definitely could be, Ant. That's another solid name. Tyreeq Smith is a guy that can't understand why he's going as late as he is, but he is. Maybe it's elite speed that people are looking at. Maybe it's the lack of consistent production. But when you watch the tape does not lie with this guy. So maybe the numbers aren't where it's supposed to be, but that also could just be a product of the system, what he's being asked to do, what his role is in said system, and also what's around him.
Right.
There may not be the pieces around him that are helping him elevate to the level that he needs to. And maybe San Francisco in this D-line and Kasarik and Tapp, maybe that's exactly what he needs to unlock what that full potential is and what he could eventually turn into or mold into in the league and in the NFL. So I'm excited about Tyreeq Smith because of what you can get him and what he can do in those types of things. I think his upside is gigantic. It's huge. The hands are extremely active as well. And the different types of moves and skill sets that he already possesses as an edge rusher. Let's get him in with someone who can hone those things in, help him work on certain things, and maybe just set him free. Because we have seen guys in this league and coming in out of college, and who get to the NFL, struggle, they get to San Francisco, and they get in the system with Kasarik.
Right.
And he basically takes the reins off and unleashes them, and we get to see maybe closer what their full potential could be. Maybe this is a situation that a guy like Tyreeq Smith needs. Maybe this is exactly what he needs.
Yeah, and I think if you're going to take a shot in the dark on somebody, this is the kind of guy you want, somebody that has the elite upside. Now, Freddie McDre brought up, what do you think of Jordan Burney as a convert to linebacker? Alex, I don't know. Have you heard of Jordan Burney?
I have heard of Jordan Burney, but I have not watched a lot of film on Jordan Burney. But I do know measurables, Ant.
Yeah.
6'2", 205?
Yeah, and I looked him up because I saw that come up in chat. From Westchester University.
Who the frick is looking at film of Westchester University?
Good job, by the way. I mean, if you can throw guys out there that we don't know, and you know what's going to happen now. Tonight, I'm going to be watching Jordan Burney film, so thanks for that. 6'2", 205. If you want to know his high school, he went to Bishop Egan.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so, I mean, this is something I'm going to have to look into. So, Jordan Burney, potentially, could be a draft gem. We're going to have to look at him. So, well done, Freddie McDre.
Absolutely glorious Freddie McDre. Freddie McDre with the name drop of name drops, and my goodness gracious almighty.
I actually Googled it just to see if it was a real player.
I Googled it, and when it came up, I was like, how do you know? First off, how do you know? Are you like Freddie McDre? The question is, right, are you the lone West... What is the school? What's the school?
Westchester.
Westchester University? You a big fan of the Westchester football program?
Maybe alma mater, maybe?
If that's his alma mater, then you know what? Then I just tip my hat.
Yeah, right.
I just tip my hat because other than Elijah Dotson out of Sac State, that's the only guy that I know that's coming out this year that's sniffing anywhere near the draft pool of Sac State football players.
Yeah.
And the only reason I know that is because my buddy, who still currently goes to Sac State, was telling me how great he was, and I was like, well, I guess I'll watch some film and take a look-see in a gander.
Well, what's weird is I actually did watch a lot of Sac State film, especially during COVID.
Yep.
Or after COVID was over. You know, they had like the games on TV.
Yep.
And I watched them because the Folsom coaches are there, the former Folsom high school coaches, Richardson and them that we know. We've had some contact with them, so I watched them. Now Frank is bringing up Nick Cross. Now, we like Nick Cross. He won't be a gem for the mention that it's got to be fourth round on. And I don't think that he's going to go in the fourth round. I fully expect Nick Cross to go late second, early third.
Fair, Ant. That's kind of what I'm thinking as well on this. I would be shocked if he gets any later than the third round, to be honest, in terms of his skill set and what he already does. So here's one for you, Ant, because not too long ago, actually quite some time ago, this guy was easily on my gems list. Recently, PFF has updated their mock draft. And Alex Wright went from a guy who was going undrafted in most cases and was ranked like, I think, 350 or something like that, to in the top 83 in the rankings. A little bit closer to where, I mean, maybe still a little high because I think he's a developmental prospect. I love everything else about him other than the fact that he's not completely polished. Is this a gem, in your opinion? Do you think he'll go as high as 83, or do you think this is a guy who's still going to fall in that 150 later range?
I think this guy's a fourth round guy. I mean, Jordan Smith was his teammate last year.
Agreed.
Jordan Smith is a better prospect than Alex Wright. As far as I thought he was farther along, the elite athletic ability. So I'm going to say Alex Wright is still in that range, but I can understand why people would move him up boards. The elite length, the elite ability. He's gonna potentially develop into that, but he's got a long way to go. He's definitely a developmental piece and not somebody that you're expecting to make an impact, in the first year of him being in the NFL. So I think that I understand what you're saying, and I would kind of rate him more as a draft gem potential than I would a top 85 talent in this draft.
Fair. That's kind of where I'm at with this, because the size and speed and everything else that he does reminds us of another similar process, ironically, and out of UAB last year as well. So similar measurables, similar things across the board. But this current gentleman here, I don't think he had necessarily the level of production on film that said gentleman last year that I'm referring to from UAB also did. So I think there's definitely a gap there in terms of production level from the two gentlemen. But I think this is it's an intriguing prospect. The length, the speed at which he plays, the flexibility he has at his size at 6'7". it has all the makings of something special that you can get late. And, if everything clicks and works out the way it's supposed to, then holy crap, you're sitting on a gold mine there of possibilities in terms of what he could turn into and what he could be and the dominance of which he could play. And I think that's the problem, though, right? With all of those things said, he could go earlier than anticipated, and someone could take a shot and reach earlier if they think that they could turn him into something special. But it's definitely a name to watch. And I agree with you. I think this is more towards him being closer to a gem prospect and going later in this draft than going in the top 100.
Yeah, I think so. I think he's a nice prospect, but he's definitely got to learn how to play, edge rusher a little bit better. I'm sure he's going to have some development during this offseason. But he's going to need even more if he's going to be one of these, good big-time edge rushers, especially with the fact that he's 6'7" and he plays like he's 6'7". He's got to play a lot lower if you're going to be playing, edge rush in the NFL, or somebody like Trent Williams is going to get up underneath you and put you in the ground. And 6'7" on the ground is not very impressive. So
that's the opposite.
Yeah. But I'm going to go to another edge rusher.
Okay.
And that's James Houston.
Yeah.
6'1", 240 pounds out of Jackson State. Now, there's a conversation: is this guy an outside linebacker? Is this guy an edge rusher? I see him as an edge rusher. I think he's built for the 3-4 defense, but I have seen the 49ers take guys built for the 3-4 defense, D Ford, Samson Ebukam, and plug them into their 4-3 wide 9 style, put their hand in the ground and let them rush the passer. I think James Houston could be one of those late round guys. Nothing about him, about size and measurables, screams special edge rusher. 6'1", 240 doesn't scream that. But when you watch the film, it's impressive. He's got a really good pass rusher. He sets the edge against the run, and then he has that versatility to be able to do a lot of different things. Not just edge rush, he could drop in zone coverage. So if you have any sort of, a zone blitz scheme, he's going to be involved in that. He can also play outside linebacker if you want him to. So this is a guy that late in the draft, potentially I've seen this guy going late 5, early 6. That would be a nice value for the 49ers, and we know how they've struck on guys in the 5th round.
That they haven't. That they have. I will stick with a guy who played edge rusher as well. Look at this, hitting all of our edge prospects.
Right, you got to.
I'll stick with an edge rusher as well, Ant, out of the University of Florida, and Zach Carter, who is sitting in spots right now where he's going, 190, 200s, 170, somewhere in there. That is one of my favorite prospects. Now, I think a lot of that is because he's in that tweener mold, right? And teams maybe looking at him as an edge rusher and concerned about size and speed and his ability to consistently play at a high level on the edge. But you and I both believe this is a guy we broke down in the interior D-line that will actually translate better on the inside than the outside. In fact, his best snaps at the college level, especially this past season in 2021, were from the interior spot when they slid him in to a 5-tech. They slid him in a couple of times on pass rushing downs into a 3-technique sort of position. And he was able to have success at the University of Florida, getting out to the quarterback, ripping through and stopping runs and being a force there on the interior. I think this is a guy that skill set might not be something that NFL teams necessarily know what to do with yet. There are definitely teams that do. And the Niners are definitely a team that know how to take a guy who's a traditional edge rusher and move him in on the interior and have some success doing those types of things. Just the question will be, where do you want to make that selection? Because the Niners, you got a deep D-line. You truly do. You don't necessarily need it. I mean, the only area right now that feels like help is needed or would be most beneficial would be opposite of Nick Bosa, not so much opposite of Arik Armstead. You have a lot of names and a lot of guys who do a lot of great things already in this group, so it makes it very hard. But what Zach Carter has already shown, the skill set he already has, the power which he plays, and the active hands, I do like a lot of the things that he already does on film. I am biased because I'm a University of Florida fan, and he was like the only positive thing from the team this past season. There were others, Kaiir Elam, no disrespect, but Kaiir Elam's nowhere near where we're going to be able to take Kaiir Elam. So this is an intriguing prospect. I would love for it to happen. I really would love for it to happen. I don't know if that'll be the case.
Well, I mean, where he would potentially get drafted in the 4th or 5th round, your argument is not so much that he's going to play opposite of Arik Armstead, but behind Arik Armstead. And if you feel like Maurice Hurst and and Kevin Givens and those guys are the rotation that you want, you're moving Kinlaw over to the 1-tech. So you got him, you got Ridgeway there. Potentially you're going to have a spot open there. You could go with a defensive lineman. There's a lot of good interior defensive linemen. But a guy that could come in as a situational pass rusher, it seems like the 49ers are just continuing to load up on those. If they feel like he could be better than one of the guys they currently have, they will do that because strengthening strength is something that they like to do. So I think the 49ers could definitely do that. I like Zach Carter. He was one of my star players. He's a very good player that can play on the outside. He can play on the inside. So there's a lot of versatility there. So if they decided in the 5th round to go with the interior defensive lineman, I wouldn't be shocked at all. And I think it would make a lot of sense. Another area that they could go, Alex, is nickel corner. And one of those nickel corners that I like is Jack Jones out of Arizona State, 5'10", 171 pounds, a little bit smaller, but kind of like that Marcus Jones type build. But he's a really good slot. He's got good hips. He's able to match coverages with, match routes with a lot of guys. I liked him a lot, and right now he's getting mocked into the late 6th, early 7th round. I think potentially this guy could be one of your comp picks, where you draft a nickel corner early, but you take Jack Jones to see what he could potentially turn into, because he's one of those guys that he likes to battle, he competes, and he played for Herm Edwards, so he understands defensive techniques the same way that John Lynch would. So I'm sure he would naturally, be like a magnet to him. So I think Jack Jones is someone that the Niners could be interested in.
You're not wrong. He could be a guy that they're interested in, and his film is very nice. What he was able to do there on the interior at times, in that nickel role, and even just in the quarterback room for Arizona State, there was some positive things there. I really did like a lot of what I saw out of him, and in all honesty, was kind of confused how he was going to be falling as late as he was, because I thought there was enough there on film that a team would probably take a chance in the 4th or 5th round, but it may be an even later option for someone like him. If a team is just taking a flyer, or they see guys with maybe more elite traits or skill sets than a Jack Jones, it's going to be very interesting. But speaking of that nickel corner slot, Ant, I mean, we got to go to our boy. We've been teasing this all week, even if the Cutback crew doesn't realize we've been teasing it. We've been telling you to bookie it for like what feels like a week and a half now. Boogie Radley-Hiles, Brendan Radley-Hiles at the University of Washington there. It was a transfer at the University of Washington. TCZ, you've been around a while. You know we love ourselves some University of Washington corners. That secondary is highly intelligent. Boogie Radley-Hiles is phenomenal. The speed at which he plays, the level of IQ at which he plays, how well and quickly he diagnoses, gets downhill, and makes plays on the football or on guys in space is absolutely incredible. I love everything that I watch on film, and the fact that he's not even ranked on most mock draft boards and most mock draft sites is screaming to me undrafted free agent home run, a guy that you don't have to worry about teaching the IQ aspect of the game and how to prepare. This is a guy who they talked about and raved about at the University of Washington, his film study and how he prepares for games, how he prepares for his opponents. His IQ is off the charts. His intensity and tenacity, which he plays, is off the charts. And this is a guy who makes plays.
Yeah, I mean, the first time I saw film about him, I couldn't wait to tell you. I mean, I just
literally.
This guy was one of those guys that jumped off the screen. He's a special type of player, and I don't know if we're the only ones that see it or what it is. Maybe this is one of those things we're looking through a tunnel. I don't know. But this guy has some elite traits that just jump off the board for sure.
Could it be the overshadowing by Trent McDuffie and Kyler Gordon, because you have two standout guys there on the perimeter that, what he does just is overlooked because it's easy for it to look good when you got those two guys around you.
Yeah, and I think because he transferred in and he wasn't at Washington very long, I don't think, maybe they see him the same way. I don't think he played as many snaps. He wasn't a guy that played as many snaps as McDuffie, and Kyler Gordon. So I think that he's kind of flying under the radar, and I'm hoping he flies straight into the 49ers, 90-man roster, because I think he could have potential to make this team as a nickel corner. That's how good he is. This guy is one of those special ones. In fact, I like him more than Jack Jones that I just talked about, and everyone knows Jack Jones is a pretty good football player, but he's exciting. And the fact that no one's talking him makes me think a lot of times, like, are we sure he's even coming out in the draft? Because it's one of those things where it's like, I haven't seen him going back to Washington. I haven't seen that. I've seen that he declared for the draft, but since then it's basically been silence. It's all quiet in the Washington front, and I don't know what's going on there. But if he's for sure in the draft, I mean, this is a guy that I'd be willing to draft. That's how good he is, and potentially he's going to be an undrafted free agent.
Right. And it's just an interesting situation because you just don't. It's hard to wrap your head around why.
Yeah.
Right? You watched the film. You pointed me in that direction. I started watching film, and you and I were drawing the same conclusions. Special talent, high IQ, pops on film, stands out just as much as the other two gentlemen on the outside around him. And it's like, how do these two guys get hit on so hard? Where one of them is going to be potentially a top 15 pick, one of them's probably going, and the other one's probably going in the top 50, and this guy's not even on boards or radars. How can that be? And you know what? As much as I can't fathom why, please let it be. Let it be. Let it happen. Because you're not wrong, and this is a guy who could slide onto the 53-man roster from an undrafted position.
Yeah, he has that kind of potential. And I mean, if you're looking for another guy that thumps when he hits, this guy's hit. This guy's one of my favorite guys to watch in all the draft prospects. He was one of my favorite ones to watch. And we know how I've been feeling about these nickel corners that can go up and pop you. The same with Damari Mathis. He can come up and light you up. But I think Mathis is going to go high enough. I don't need to talk about him in this episode, which is kind of nice. One guy, though, Alex, that we're not sure where he's going to land. So I'm going to go ahead and talk about him because depending on who you are, this guy's either a 2nd or 7th round pick. I guess what convenience store you walk out of. You just don't know. But Jalen Armour Davis, 6'1", 192 pounds from Alabama. All the things I saw on film was, nice instincts, really good at zone coverage, understanding what his job was, being able to press on the football. I didn't see the problems. And I know that Job was getting some attention opposite of him. But I think Jalen Armour Davis is the better guy. And I actually believe Jalen Armour Davis has a potential to play nickel corner or on the outside. That versatility might be just what the doctor ordered. The 6'1" thing makes you think maybe he's just on the edge of what the 49ers would look for in a corner. Possible. They've been going 6 foot and lower, but this guy's change of direction doesn't look like a 6'2" plus guy where he labors to get in and out of his breaks, be able to get the 45-degree angle with his foot and press on the ball. That hasn't been something I've seen that's a struggle. I would give this guy around a late 2nd, early 3rd round grade. I liked him a lot. So I think he would be a steal if he starts to trickle, into the late 3rd, early 4th round.
Correct. I mean, a lot of places have him mocked very close to Tyreek Castro Fields out of Penn State, who's another guy that I really like, but not as much as Jalen Armour Davis.
Yeah.
And when I was watching film, there's stark differences in terms of the level of play and what Jalen Armour Davis does. And I remember I told you the first couple of times I watched film, I was struggling to find him on the football field, Jalen Armour Davis, because I was looking for other people and I was trying to pick and choose the spots. There were games where he was used sparingly, but when he's on the football field, when he was there, it is lockdown.
Yeah, it
is lockdown city. This guy handles his business. It is a wonderful situation there. And what Freddie Mac Dre just said, JAD, Jalen Armour Davis is still at 134. I feel that way. I feel at 134, you just got incredible value there for a guy like this. And just recently, right, we've seen PFF start to move him up and put him in kind of that top 100 range of players. That doesn't necessarily mean he's going to be going there. It doesn't necessarily mean that teams are going to value that or look at it the same way. Things change and shift and move around for a reason. But this is a guy who's extremely well developed there at the University of Alabama that played at a very high level. And when you watch the film, Josh Jobe had some nice situations and nice plays there for them. But consistently, the guy who gets beaten that secondary is Jobe. Jobe is the one that's giving up big plays. Jalen Armour Davis is locking down his man, his responsibility in space, and was anything but sort of the steady hand in that secondary for that Alabama defense.
Yeah, and Jay always says he's climbing boards. He definitely is. And I think that this is just one of those things I had to touch on because, Alex, way back when we started breakdowns, Jalen Armour Davis is one of those guys that was in the 5th, 6th round of boards that we were looking at, and we were very high on him. So I'm going to stay consistent on him. Just because everyone else is just figuring it out, we're going to go ahead and keep him on one of these draft gym videos. Fair. But you're right, JL. He is going up in a big way. Another guy that is a nickel corner potential guy, as you can see, the 49ers definitely need a nickel corner.
So we're paying attention to the nickel corner?
I know I am, and I'm sure you are as well. And that's Mykael Wright, 5'10", 173 pounds out of Oregon. This is a guy we talked about on our cornerback video. I really like his elite speed, explosive kickoff return ability. This is a guy that can take it to the house at any time. I love that. I love adding that. And then he has man coverage skills. What have we been talking about with K'Wan Williams in the slot, getting beat on that deep fade route? That doesn't happen to Mykael Wright because of the elite speed, being able to stay over the top and then match man on man with a slot corner. We've got Cooper Kupp. We've got Tyler Lockett. You got to be able to do that. So I really like him a lot. The only questions for him is his weight. At 173 pounds, the same thing with Jack Jones. You're worried about weight overall, but potentially this guy could be a nice bang-up prospect. And we know the 49ers just got Deommodore Lenoir last year out of Oregon. What do they always do? They always watch film and end up getting somebody that's a teammate. We know this is something that they do. Potentially, Mykael Wright would be a nice fit for the Niners.
You're right. This is 100% something and definitely a name that 49ers fans need to be keeping an eye on because 49ers have gone late round cornerback from the University of Oregon in the past. They just did it most recently. Yeah. Eric Armstead is an U of O alum who just got done coaching at the U of O in their spring football game, which means he was probably in there. He was talking with coaches about stuff and who knows, maybe the Niners sent him with a couple of questions about a couple of prospects to said coaches to get some more information. But look, Mykael Wright, everything that he does on film too is wonderful. And this is something we talked about last year as well, leading into it. There's a handful of schools and where the guys, when you watch the film, you can tell that they're coached up in a very, very big way. And if you're an NFL team and you're a secondary coach and you're looking at a guy who maybe has some skill sets and things and maybe some technique stuff that needs to get cleaned up, when you have technique stuff that needs to get cleaned up and you have IQ things that need to get cleaned up, things you need to learn, your learning curve is huge. There's only so much you can get done in so much time. But when you only have one area or one thing, one focus level, right? One thing that you need to be focusing on and keeping your mind on, well, it becomes a lot easier to get said person coached up. The nice thing with the University of Oregon prospects and is IQ level is up to snuff. They know what's going on. They have a very good idea of how to play in space, where to be. And we saw that last year with Diamond Lenore. He came in, and for the most part, very early on, he was serviceable, right? Yes, teams were able to scheme some things up and put him in some situations where maybe he wasn't completely familiar with responsibility and how to execute. But for the most part, early in the season, he held up. He did the things he needed to do. And that's because there's less of a learning curve, less of a development curve in terms of understanding the game. They can come in and have a base understanding already. U of O prospects tend to do that, and Mykael Wright shows it on film as well.
Yeah, he does. And, Diamond Lenore came into camp last year, and they played him on the outside. Sure. They did not put him in the nickel corner spot early on. So maybe they are still envisioning him playing on the outside. Maybe that's something they're going to do. And if they are, they're going to need nickel corners. We know they do need a starter. Mykael Wright's one of those guys with the elite talent. But Jay Ellie's right. My guy, Damari Mathis is flying up boards right now. Every day it feels like you turn on the boards and the mock draft simulators, and he's just closer and closer, to a first round or to a second round talent. I think by the time the draft comes, Damari Davis, he's for sure going to be gone in the second round, but I think at some point he's going to get all the way up there in the top 60 picks. I really do. I see that elite, caliber of player. I think he's K1 Williams with some thump to him. He's a big time player. He gets after it. My only arguments with him has been handsy. He gets a little bit too handsy and grabs a little bit, and that's something that could catch up to him in the NFL where it's a little bit more scrutinized. But that him and Jalen Armour Davis are on the fast pace. Getting up there into the second round.
Skyrockets in flight.
That's right.
All the way to the moon. And look, I'm gonna take a step back. I'm gonna go back towards edge because I almost forgot it.
Ooh,
almost forgot my boy out of Fresno State, Ant.
Oh, nice, yeah.
My gentleman Aaron Mosby out of Fresno State, who the very first time that I watched film, I was actually watching film on Andrew Ogletree in one of the Shrine Bowl games. I think it was the Yanai versus I forget what the Aki versus the Noai.
I believe that wasn't the Shrine Bowl. I believe that was the Hula Bowl.
The Hula Bowl. Like. There it is.
There you go.
There it was. The Hula Bowl. So I'm watching the Hula Bowl, and I'm looking at Andrew Ogletree because I'd watched some film of him at Youngstown State. I wanted to see him against other, Division I level caliber players.
An offensive gym, by the way.
Yeah, offensive gym. He was in the offensive gym. I'm watching the film, and there's this D end who's got some active hands. He's got some good dip and some bend and extremely high motor and. Yeah. He's getting through and he's hitting the quarterback. He's sacking the quarterback. He's tackling for guys for loss consistently. And I'm like, dude, who is that guy? Like, is this a DN that I've already watched that I'm just like starting to fall in love with? Who is this? Oh, that's Mosby from Fresno State. Who? Start watching Fresno State film, and good golly almighty, Ant. I don't know how this guy is ranked undrafted, 500s, 400s, 350. How are you so far down boards? Because he's got the size, he's got the measurables at 6'4", he's got the speed at 4.71. Is it blazing speed? No. Is it fast enough as a DN? Yes. And when you watch his film, the strength is the first step. The way he gets off, the way he gets his hands active in space. Yeah. This is a guy who gets after it. Forced a lot of turnovers, a lot of forced fumbles at his time at Fresno State. A lot. Whether it was versus the run or quarterbacks completely unaware of the fact that he's absolutely ate a left tackle or ate their right tackle and embarrassed them. This guy has more sack fumbles. I watched more sack fumbles in the last 2 years of Aaron Mosby than some prospects that I'm absolutely in love with that are going in the top 150 of this draft. I don't know how this guy isn't higher on boards. I don't think this guy should be like as high as a top 100 prospect, but I look at everything already and the tools that he already possesses, and I sit there and go, a team like San Francisco, this is the dude. This is the type of dude that you're looking for. He does a lot of those things already. He does a lot of the things that you're looking for. His skill set's already honed and developed. Is he a top-end blazer? No, he's not the top-end blazer. He's not necessarily the guy that you're relying on to be opposite of Nick Bosa every pass rush. He's not necessarily the closer guy. It's not his role, but he could fit already into the role and into the mold of what we've seen out of an Arden Key already, what we've seen out of a Jordan Willis and a Charles Omenihu, and I don't think he would miss a beat. Now, the only question is I don't know if he can beat those guys out right now. I think those guys are more fine-tuned, ready prospect than an Aaron Mosby is. But if it's a undrafted free agent, you can sneak this guy into your practice squad. No problems, no questions asked.
Yeah, before I talk about Mosby, because you did tip it off. Eric Dane saying he's glad I wasn't holding out for a bigger contract by not being on last night's show. And then, yeah, I'm not pulling a Debo.
No,
there will be no video of me out at the club last night, pulling any of this.
None of the cup. We don't want the cup.
Yeah, none of that. But no, when you brought up Mosby to me, I think it was earlier last week. He was a player that was exciting to watch because I hadn't seen any film on him. I wasn't very in tune with what he was doing, but he looked really good coming off the edge. And you're right, he showed a lot of speed to strength ratio. That was nice. He had good hands. He had good technique. And in fact, it made me sit up in my seat and go, "Oh, okay." He's an exciting prospect. I think something that does confuse people is how he spells his name. ARR, not an Aaron, but ARRON. That can be a little bit of confusion.
Aaron.
It's definitely Aaron, but just spelled differently. But I think I was just making it fun. But anyways, when it comes down to this guy, he's a very good player. You're right. Somebody that if you can get late in this draft, I believe he has potential to be a 3-down defensive end. He needs some development. He does need to work on a little bit of the setting the edge and those sort of things. But as a developmental prospect, this guy's a big home run potentially. He could be a gem. And I think he's a very good player, and that was a nice find by you. I did not watch a whole lot of Fresno State football, but his film has been exciting to watch from what I've saw so far. And I'm actually going to probably watch more before the draft, so that way, just in case, because we all know San Francisco, right here in California. What else is there? Fresno State. So I'm sure they have a really good idea of who this guy is and what he's about.
Very good. JLA just said it. Was he at the local pro day? I don't believe he was.
Yeah, I don't think he was. If I remember right, I thought I heard he went to another pro day that day. So maybe he wasn't there.
True. So no, yeah, it was not holding out for the bigger contract. No. He didn't scrub his Instagram account. Everything is fine.
Yeah. To be determined on the Instagram account. I guess I would have to post on my Instagram account for me to be able to scrub it.
Fair.
Yeah.
That would also apply to me as well. So,
yeah. Right now, my Instagram, the last 2 posts are about the draft party. So there you go.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
It's the only thing that matters, Ed, is posting about the draft party, which is April 29th, 4 to 8 p.m. This Friday, TCC.
Well done.
This Friday. So make sure you're there. Who's next up on your list, Ed? Who's the next guy?
If you're going to draft crushes, I have to go to my draft crush, and that's Zacoby McClain, 5'11", 228 pounds out of Auburn. Everything about this guy screams big-time football player. He flies around. He's a thumper, as I like to say. He's a hitter. Sideline-to-sideline speed, and he has good feel and vision. I know he's 5'11", and that was the big argument. Apparently, that really hindered Zach Thomas as well.
Apparently.
But Zacoby McClain is one of those guys that's an athlete. He flies around, he makes tackles, and he's a good tackler. I really liked him a lot. He was one of my favorite linebackers, if not my favorite linebacker in the draft. I think if he had the elite size and speed, we would be talking about him being a first-round pick. Because I got the similar vision and things that we got from Zaven Collins last year. We get with Zacoby McClain, just in a smaller version. Zaven had all the size and ability, and Zacoby doesn't have that. But I really like him. The only concern I have with him, and this is something I've seen with a lot of the linebackers, especially coming out of college, is the way that they shed their blocks. He is an avoidance linebacker. He likes to avoid the blocker and try to make the tackle. That does work for the most part, but every once in a while you have to shed a block, and that's something he could get better at. But to me, this guy is not a 5th or 6th round prospect. This guy is a top 3 round prospect.
I agree with you on this, and in fact, I just watched someone today, a prominent YouTuber, I'm blanking on the channel name right now, but they broke down their linebackers, and they actually had him in tier 4, which are immediate special team impact guys who maybe can develop into something but need a lot of work. And he got to Zacoby McClain, and he goes, and it's weird, I put this guy here in this list, but of all of the names that we've talked about in the last 2 tiers, he goes, this one might actually be the closest to being a ready to go, could potentially make or break a lineup in the next year or two and start type linebacker. There's just questions about size, questions about speed, question about ability to handle the physicality at the level of the NFL and get off of blocks. And I'm sitting there going, but if those are the concerns and he's still close, wouldn't you put him higher, not lower? But apparently this is a hiccup. It's a bugaboo for people. I don't understand it because you're right. Yeah. He's a thumper.
Yeah, people get stuck on size too much. But physical size and stature doesn't dictate how you play on the field. I mean, people can play bigger than their stature. We talk about this all the time with receivers as well. You are only hindered by your own ability to get done what you want to get done. And then these guys play with, beyond their physical size, speed. This is just something that this guy does really well. This guy's a big-time player. I honestly believe if the 49ers drafted him, that 1 year behind Azeez Al-Shire and Trey Greenlaw, he'd be not only flashing on special teams, but would be able to step in the next year and do a very, very good job. I like him a lot. He's one of my favorite guys in the draft for sure. And if he goes to the Rams, Seahawks, or Cardinals, I'm going to be very frustrated.
Yeah, Ant. Frustrated is probably an understatement, my guy.
Yeah.
Frustrated is definitely going to be an understatement. And Garish, thank you so much. He said, best dang sports show, period.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate that.
So we appreciate that love, man. We do. Next guy for me.
He's not wrong, my guy.
He's not wrong, my guy. Next one for me, Ant. Out of Benedict College.
Ooh.
6'2", 310-pound defensive tackle, Wendell Bing. This is a guy who had some big offers, had some big Division I offers, but decided to go to a little bit smaller school. He played at C.A. Johnson High School in Columbia, South Carolina. I think he did have a scholarship offer to South Carolina, if I'm not mistaken. I may be wrong on that. But here is the thing that I really like of said gentleman. The 6'2", 310 frame, some people may think smaller because he does play a little bit more closer to a 3 technique right now at the college level. He played 3 technique. At times, play a little bit nose as well. Maybe you need a little bit more size than the 6'2", 310 frame. You can add some weight in order to get yourself stronger. But incredible motor, incredible hustle, extremely polished hand technique for someone playing at a small school. And we usually don't think of someone with polished technique. He doesn't dominate necessarily with power. He dominates with the first step. When I watch his first step on film, I sit there and go, oh my, this is giving me DJ Jones-esque first step vibes. It's not the same as DJ Jones, but it gives me those same types of vibes. This guy right now is mostly used and utilized in the run game, but had a lot of success getting after and forcing quarterback pressures. Most quarterback pressures actually in school history out of this gentleman, Wendell Bing. Phenomenal talent. Not on anyone's. I literally saw no one talking about this guy until I read one article who said, I just happened to stumble across him at the HBCU Pro Day and thought it was intriguing, liked his first step and his get off in his 40 and was like, you know what? I'm going to watch some film on this gentleman. And then he compiled a whole list of film and a whole bunch of videos on it. And I was like, oh my God, yeah, the first step is explosive. No one's talking about it. The hand's nice, extremely high motor. Undrafted free agent gem, 100% absolutely, and someone I would definitely like the Niners to take a look at.
Well, Wendell Bing, okay. I mean, if we're going small school, I'm going to go ahead and go with you, and I'm going to land on Isaiah Land. This is the one we've been teasing for a while.
It's true.
6'4", 215 pounds from Florida A&M. He's an edge rusher at Florida A&M and a dynamic edge rusher with the speed to be able to close on quarterbacks and run them down from behind. The question with him has been, is he an edge rusher, linebacker, or safety in the NFL?
Accurate.
Because of the 215-pound frame. When I look at this guy going late in the draft or potentially undrafted is, hey, it's a football player, a guy you can mold. In a similar way that you saw Amari Barno, that's how I see this guy in Isaiah Land. He has that potential. He's a football player, and he plays hard. So I love this guy. I love his speed. I love his bend around the edge. I think he's a guy that can potentially develop into an edge rusher, especially if you have the time to let this guy develop. Guess what? You know what the 49ers have with all the ability around time to let a guy sit on the practice squad, develop, and put on some size. This guy could put on 15 to 20 pounds. I think he could be an impact player in the league.
Agreed with you there, Ant. 100% agreed with you on that. And look, I think the big thing too with Isaiah Land is when you showed me the film for the first time and I started watching it, I was like, why does this school have a wide receiver playing defensive end? Why don't you just go find yourself a natural D, and why are you taking a wide receiver and putting him there? he's got a wide receiver build right now. He doesn't have the build of a traditional and standard defensive end, including, I mean, Xavier Williams, the other guy from said school, same sort of thing. Very big size, 6'4", 290. He's a little bit bigger in terms of the stature and size, but you don't look at either of those two gentlemen and are sitting there going, man, those look like traditional standard defensive ends. They don't even necessarily move like it at times.
Yeah.
There's a lot of positive things from both those gentlemen at that school, but Isaiah Land is definitely the one that's most intriguing prospect right now just because of what he can do and I think what the Niners' needs are and what they would like to develop. This guy has all the tools and characteristics. He just needs that precious, valuable resource that is time. And if the Niners have time at any position right now, it's the D-line. This is a guy you could grab as an undrafted free agent. You could take on a flyer at the end of this draft, 7th round, and then just wait. Be patient. Take 2 years. Develop him. And then year 3, figure out what he is and where he's at and if he can be the guy you think he can be. And in all honesty, if there are 2 coaches on the staff that I trust as much, if not more, than Kyle Shanahan, it's Tapp and it's Kasarik. They can do pretty much anything you need them to do with the pieces that you give them. Well, I guess there's also D'Amico Ryan. You know what, Ant? There's basically the entire coaching staff is what it feels
like. No, it is because, right, if they moved him to safety, you have the faith in Sorensen being able to turn 100%. This guy into a player. If he goes to linebacker, you have the faith D'Amico Ryans could develop him. We've seen him do it before. And then if he's on the line, you got Darryl Tapp and you got Chris Kasarik. But with his technique and the way that he's able to play, I think it's more a size thing than it is an actual skills thing. So I think this is one of those things where they could develop him for sure in the weight room. I'm guessing by the time he gets drafted, he's going to be 225 pounds plus anyways. This guy's not going to be that far off. I think 1 year sitting and learning, potentially on the practice squad, and this guy could be, a guy that's coming on. And we've seen them do this with Alex Barrett, and this guy has more physical gifts than Alex Barrett does.
Very true. Very true. And Baby Darius, I'm typing this out now for you as well. But the list of players itself, we will post in the description. I will have that all in there after this video is done. So when this video goes live for people who missed the live stream, there will be a list of all these players so that you can, on your own time, go research and look. And you don't have to scroll back and look. You can just look in the description section.
Yeah, and there's a lot of players you're going to want to delve into their film. Another guy potentially is another linebacker, and he was a star player for me. And it's Mykael McFadden, right? Micah McFadden, 6'1", 240 pounds out of Indiana. Instinctive in run fits. He tracks short and immediate pass routes at a high rate. He's really good at tracking the run as well and tracking down players. He was somebody that I really liked, and he was a step down from Zacoby McClain, but I thought a very good player that I thought could play all 3 positions in the NFL. So both of those guys were huge prospects for me. So I think that there's a lot of I think John Lynch is right. There's a lot of talent all throughout this draft, and there's some real gems. And I know a lot of people have been saying to me, like, we don't need a linebacker. But I see potentially you have Azeez Al-Shire, who did sign officially his 1-year tender. I know you broke that last night. And then also you have Dre Greenlaw in the last year of the contract. The realistic point of this is one of them is going to be here and one of them is going to be gone. You're going to need a linebacker to fill that role. Is it going to be Demetrius Flanagan-Fowles, or you want to draft a guy to develop this year to be able to step right in and take over when one of those guys leave? I think it's the latter. You want one of those guys to step in and take over in case one of them leave, or you trade one of them away. So the Niners are going to probably address linebacker in this draft, even though it's one of the immense strengths of their football team.
Very, very true, Ant. Extremely true. And in fact, it's funny that McFadden, when you brought him up to me initially, I hadn't watched any film. I hadn't looked at all at him, at even a smidge of a little bit. I started watching film, and late at night one night, I'm watching some film, sitting there, not able to sleep, taking it out, and starting to dig what I'm seeing. I'm like, all right, yeah, this is okay, all right, I like this. And Megan rolls over at one point, looks at me, you're still up? I'm like, yeah. She's like, who are you watching? I'm like, oh, this McFadden guy out of Indiana University, IU, and she goes, IU's got a good enough player that's going to be going in the draft. And I was like,
wow,
burn. That's her alma mater. That's a sick burn right there. But that's what it feels like with the IU program, right? You don't typically take all the prospects that come out of those areas seriously because, I mean, the program hasn't been extremely competitive in the past, decade or even longer than that. And you just don't know what those players are going to pan out. You don't necessarily always get a good look at what they are either because they're not necessarily playing with top-end talent around them, and so they're having to potentially cover for other people. But you're right. A lot of the stuff he does on film is exciting. I do like it, and there's a lot of possibility there, and you're right. Linebacker is something that you need to address either now or later. And if it's later, then you have to get a more polished prospect. And if it's now, you can take some chances.
Yeah, I mean, if these guys are going to be slotted where they are, though, McFadden, Zacoby McClain in the 5th round, Dre Greenlaw, 5th round. I mean, this is potentially when you could grab one of those players that's going to be able to fit that role. And maybe it's because it's a size or speed reason that they're not going as high up as they should. But both these guys have a lot of talent. So I'm excited about what the 49ers could do in this draft.
Very true. Eric Dane said, what's going on with Marcel Harris moving to linebacker? Marcel Harris signed with the Jets.
Yeah, Marcel Harris is officially signed with the Jets, so he's gone. The 49ers won't have him back in the room. So, I mean, potentially they do have another slot there to be filled as a special teams guy. I know they did sign a linebacker in free agency.
True.
But they're definitely not done addressing this. And the guys we talked about, McFadden and McClain at the linebacker position, are both guys that would make an impact on special teams right away.
Very true, Ant. Very true. I do have one more cornerback prospect that I want to talk about. I think this is probably the last guy that's on my list, if I remember correctly. It's a cornerback out of Fayetteville State, Joshua Williams. The only reason is the 6'2" size tends to fit the mold a little bit more of what the Niners are looking for in terms of size of the cornerback spot. At the Senior Bowl, he clocked in at 21.75 miles per hour. And people were like, oh, this is a fast gentleman. We got to start keeping an eye on him. And then at the combine, he ran a 4.46, and people were a little disappointed and a little down, even though last time I checked, 4.46 is still pretty fast. He's also a guy that I don't know if he's necessarily going to go higher in this draft. I'm not 100% sure. I know there's some people that really like him. There's a lot of people who have questions on him. I think he has freakish athletic ability, and I know in high school he used to play wide receiver. So I know there's definitely some wiggle and a little bit of oomph there. It's going to be an interesting prospect to keep an eye on.
There you go. I like that. And yeah, Jay Ellie the linebacker I was referring to as Oren Burks. Came over from the Green Bay Packers. Special teams, ace. But the 49ers are definitely looking there. Now, they have 2 linebackers right now that are special teams aces behind the starters. They had lost Azeez Al-Shire as a special teams ace because when you're a starting linebacker, you usually don't play as much special teams.
Fair.
But they're definitely going to bring in 1, potentially 2 linebackers to be able to compete with those guys. And we've seen before them bring in special teams ace at linebacker, and then those guys not make the roster because somebody else is better. So the 49ers are going to address the linebacker room. I have a really strong feeling about that.
I would agree with you there. It does feel like this is the time where the Niners should do it, especially with everything that's going on and everything that has happened with this team in terms of how they've built out this team, how they've addressed certain positions. They tend to address things a little earlier, a year earlier than anticipated. So even though linebacker is not a position of traditional need in terms of what the Niners or what fans think, this feels like the year they're going to try and strike while the iron's hot.
Yeah, exactly. And if you have any questions, we'll do a quick Q&A here.
Absolutely.
Put your questions in there. We'll cover it for 5 or so minutes. So if you have something, let us know. It could be about these prospects or something else. But if you want to talk about these prospects or guys that you guys have seen, because some people have found guys that I've never heard of.
Accurate.
I'm looking forward to it.
It's true. They definitely find people that I've never heard of. I mean, we had a gentleman earlier, Ant, who brought up. Oh gosh, why am I blanking on the name now? Why am I blanking on the name? Because I didn't expect to see a said person or even think about it. I'm blanking right now, but TCC, you'll let me know.
Yeah.
Jaylyn just said Monteric Brown, cornerback out of Arkansas.
Yeah, you know what? I don't know. I don't even know who that is.
I know who it is, but I haven't watched enough film.
You know what? There is also a guy. I believe I didn't write him on my actual list here. And that is Greg Johnson, cornerback from USC.
Oh,
he's a nickel corner, and
yes.
I liked him a lot. And I went back and looked at my list right now, and he's somebody that I was definitely interested in. So that is a guy also to keep an eye on in the late rounds as a potential guy the Niners could draft. Similar size, is the 5'10", 5'11", 185-pound guy. But he can definitely get it done, and somebody that's interesting to watch. And I watched him cover some guys that are in the NFL now, and he held his own. So he was somebody to watch as a late round guy.
Very, very true indeed. So look, Monteric Brown, Jordan Birdie, Freddie Mac, thank you. Jordan Birdie.
Oh, there we go.
Was brought up earlier. Monteric Brown, Jaylyn, not a name that I've watched a lot of film on, but I am aware of him. Haven't watched enough to, I guess, make me fall in love or even fully remember.
Yeah.
Someone had just asked Draco asked, who have they met with? That's a good chance. That's a good chance of knowing who will draft. I have a list, Ant.
Okay, 1 second, because someone else brought up Gaddafi Wright as well earlier in chat, and I had looked it up. Gaddafi Wright's a linebacker, 6'3", 230 pounds, out of Richmond, Virginia. And and I was trying to see what school. He went to Buffalo. So that's somebody that I'm looking forward to checking out as well, is Gaddafi Wright.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to put that on the list as well. So tracker, here we go. Houston cornerback Marcus Jones. Maryland tight end Chigoziem Okonkwo, and a shocking development.
I really like Okonkwo. I'm telling you, I really like him. He's not my favorite tight end, but I really like him.
Agreed. Stanford defensive lineman Thomas Booker. That's a recent one. Chattanooga center Cole Strange.
Smart.
UAB edge rusher Alex Wright. There's that.
Yeah.
Montana State linebacker Troy Anderson, in a shocking turn of events. And
As a tight end.
Nebraska center Cam Jurgens. Florida right tackle Gene DeLance. Minnesota edge rusher Boy Mafi. Texas A&M safety Leon O'Neal. Illinois safety Kirby Johnson. Christian Watson. Miami of Ohio defensive lineman Dominique Robinson. Cincinnati edge rusher Myjai Sanders. USC edge rusher Drake Jackson. Rutgers wide receiver Bo Melton. Georgia running back James Cook. Baylor cornerback Kalen Barnes, another guy that we like a lot. And Nebraska wide receiver Samori Toure. Yes, Samori Toure. SMU wide receiver Danny Gray. Western Kentucky edge rusher D'Angelo Malone. Cincinnati running back Jerome Ford. UCF's defensive tackle Kalia Davis. Utah safety Vontae Davis. That was via Zoom. Penn State safety Jaquan Brisker. Montana State quarterback Tre Webb. Arizona State cornerback Chase Lucas, UNC running back Ty Chandler, Oklahoma State running back Jalen Warren, and Memphis offensive lineman Dylan Parham. There are also a few other names the team's been linked to. Arizona State's Rashad White, San Diego State tight end Daniel Bellinger, but the team has not confirmed whether or not they spoke with said players.
Yeah, and the thing is, we always have to remember along the way that the 49ers do draft players that they don't meet with. Mike McGlinchey, they said hi to at the combine before they drafted him. He said they literally spoke to him for 2 minutes and then they selected him. So he was surprised when they called. So sometimes you don't talk to certain people you're really excited about if you have a good feeling about who they are as a person, because you don't want to tip anyone's hand at what you're trying to do. So I think sometimes these names give you an idea, of who they're looking at. And then sometimes I think they are a little bit of a smokescreen and a misdirection. So I think the 49ers are very, very good at that, and I'm curious to see if they do end up drafting any of these guys, because some of the names I really like. I liked Cole Strange. I liked hearing Dylan Parham. Those guys are good prospects. But we also heard names that were players that are going to go in the first round that the Niners have no shot at. So I think that's interesting as well.
But Ant, couldn't that just mean that the Niners are in fact planning to trade Debo Samuel?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I think that these are guys they potentially think could fall out of the first round. And you got to be, you're able to go up and get somebody if you want. So I don't know what's going to happen with the Debo Samuel situation. I think he wants to get paid. I think the 49ers want to pay him. And anytime you have two people that are motivated to make something happen, usually you can find a way to get it done. And I think that it's about business. And as long as it never gets personal and it's just about business, I think they'll get it done. And if it comes down to a point where the 49ers don't believe that they can ever come to a conclusion that works for both parties, then they'll seek a potential trade. But right now, I don't think that's the way, and I don't expect him to get traded on Thursday. If he did, it would be shocking. But it's something you would just have to respond to. But we'll see.
We are going to see Jaylyn giving some laughing, crying faces. I'm going to assume, JLA, it's because Restream is over here talking about how they've received 100 messages in chat today and no one likes to show off Restream. So knock that off. Paul Sanders, I don't think we're going to need first-round picks for Debo because I think he's staying home after listening to Lynch today. Paul, I'm glad that you feel that way because I thought we got a whole lot of nothing from John Lynch today.
Yeah, I mean, I think John Lynch, he said the company line, right, that he didn't want to talk about the situation. He knows everyone wants to know, but he can't envision in a situation where they would trade Debo Samuel for what he means to the team, and that's where the King's ransom thing comes in. Somebody would have to absolutely blow their socks off to believe that it's a franchise-changing type trade for them to potentially move off from this piece. That's how much they value him. You don't just lose your queen in a chessboard for no reason. You better be getting something back, something that you believe can be an equivalent to a queen to win the game. So I think that's what they look at, and they see so much value in Debo Samuel. So it's going to take a lot. And people that have been throwing out the 10 pick, I think it's going to take a lot more than just the 10 pick to get it done.
No, the 10 pick's not even close to enough.
Yeah.
And I'm seeing a lot of people talking about how the 10 pick, if the 10 pick's on the table, then you just get it done because you can't pick 10. No other team is going to be able to offer you potentially that high of a pick and potentially more things as well. That's not a King's ransom. A King's ransom isn't one pick.
I'll be honest, after seeing what's been going on 49ers Twitter over the past week or so, and even earlier on with the way they were willing to get rid of Jimmy Garoppolo, it really made me want to have to barter with these people. They were willing to take anything. They would have given me great pieces. Like if we'd have been doing cards, right, like trading cards, could you imagine the haul I would have gotten for a Joe Montana? They were just, I got 2 of them. I'm just willing to get rid of it. Give me a Happy Meal, and I would have ended up with a $100 card. That's kind of how it is, and
those are the type of people that you could have traded a holographic Mewtwo for a holographic Charizard back in the day, and you'd be sitting with a $10 million Pokemon card.
If I had any idea what you were talking about, I would be able to, understand. But
you want to know why I'm talking about it, Ant? Because guess who had a Pokemon card collection growing up? Guess.
I'm guessing you.
Guess. And guess who had every holographic starter? This guy. And their Evolution series. It got stolen. Someone stole a Gen 1 holographic Charizard from me. And I could be a millionaire right now.
Yeah, well, you're not. Yeah, exactly.
Silly.
Ooh,
silly.
Yeah, selling Pogs for Pokemon. Well done, JLE.
Ooh.
I was a Pogger as well. I did have Pogs.
Pogs were nice.
Was there any more questions?
What is Ant's definition of a King's ransom? Asked JLA.
I saw what you guys were putting in chat last night, and I think a King's ransom, for me, I don't put as much value on draft picks as everyone else. I want players that can add, impact. I want proven commodities. So I would need to get at least 2 proven commodities and then draft picks on top of that. So if you were telling me that the Washington football team, for instance, wanted to give me Antonio Gibson, Terry McLaurin, and a first-round pick, then I'm in business. If you told me that the Pittsburgh Steelers wanted to give me Najee Harris, Chase Claypool, and another pick, then we're in business. I think if you're looking at that, if the Cowboys wanted to send me some of their big-time players, potentially then we're in business. But it's going to take a lot because I know I have to be able to make up the production I'm going to lose from Debo Samuel and the versatility. And for me, it's going to take multiple players to do that. And I don't see someone in the draft that's going to be able to do what Debo Samuel can do.
I agree with you there. And the other thing I want to add on to that, or not even add on to that, but I guess I want to give you a chance to not clarify on, but expand upon. Freddie Mac just said, would you take 10, 35, and a 2023 first or second for Debo if we can't patch things up with him? You just said it, right? Picks is not enough for you. I think you would be, I don't want to speak for you, but I think you would be more inclined to hold on to Debo for the next 2 years, let him play out his contract for the next 2 years, and then let him walk in free agency and get a pick back from him walking as a free agent, correct?
What I would do is if I thought I needed to trade him, number one, I'm not doing anything this year. He's on a rookie pay scale. If he won't sign the extension, I'm not trading him. So there's that. Then I franchise tag him after the year. Then I know that anyone that wants to sign him away, if I make him exclusive rights, they're going to give me 2 first-round picks. So that's the starting point. That's at which I would do it. But you can also negotiate a trade at that point. You could potentially move on from him at that. But I think that makes it so it's 2 first-round picks to get Debo Samuel. You're getting at least that worth. That would be my starting point. But right now, as a team, I wouldn't feel like there's any reason why I'd have to move off of them. I hold all the leverage. So I understand why people are willing to take the deals, and those deals don't sound bad. Don't get me wrong. But just because they don't sound bad doesn't mean they sound great either. Let's get the most we could potentially get for Debo.
I like that there. 2 questions, Ant, and then we're going to wrap this thing up for the night. The first is Freddie Mac Dre just asked, Justin Jefferson blank plus picks, question mark?
I like Justin Jefferson. The Minnesota Vikings are not going to move off Justin Jefferson.
Agreed there.
I think if they would, I think you would be interested in getting a top flight receiver. I think he would fit what they do with Brandon Ayuk and Trey Lance. So he would be a nice fit for any system. I just don't see them moving off him. They got their gem of wide receiver. They made the move. They moved on Diggs and they got him. I don't see them making the move, but potentially, that would be a trade I'd be interested in. Sure.
I like it, but yeah, I like you here. I don't know if that's something Minnesota is looking at in terms of this fixes our problems, this does things for us. I think they would like to be able to pair Debo with Justin Jefferson more than move Justin Jefferson to get Debo Samuel.
If Cleveland wouldn't have already traded, they would be somebody that'd be interested in Debo Samuel, but they won't now because they made the move for Cowboys wide receiver. Amari Cooper, thank you.
Got you. Yeah. I got you. I almost went blank too there. Baby Darius, last question here of the night. What's the story behind Troy Anderson? So Troy Anderson is a guy who has played a lot of, well, not played. He's actually physically worn a lot of different hats at Montana State, whether it was quarterback, he's played some running back as well, Ant. Before moving in and transitioning into tight end, he's very new, raw to the position.
You mean linebacker.
Linebacker, excuse me. Did I say tight end?
You did.
I meant linebacker. Ant. Sorry,
I like where your head's at.
Our linebacker breakdown video is scrolling through my head right now. But Troy Anderson is a guy who's very raw, new to the position of linebacker. Shown a lot of promise, a lot of flash, a lot of positive things for someone who hasn't played the position very much. There's definitely some areas of improvement, but the intriguing thing about him is his versatility and the fact that this could be a guy that you could potentially utilize as a weapon on both sides of the football or at multiple positions.
Yeah, I think it's where your value is. If you see this guy's an offensive weapon or a defensive weapon, he's a developmental linebacker. There's a lot of things that he needs to get better at. He's not great at run fits. He's more of a sideline-to-sideline guy right now. He's a little bit slower to read, but those are things he's going to develop as he gets more comfortable playing the position. So he's a guy that I don't see a second-round talent on as a linebacker. I love the speed. I love the size. I love the potential, but I don't have a second-round grade on him. And so I think that I seen him as a potential tight end in the NFL. I seen him running the football and the things that he was doing in the open field on film, and I said, okay, that guy makes sense to me at tight end. And already being 6'4" with a 243-pound frame potentially means he could slide into tight end. He's already got the physical stature and size, and not afraid to play of contact because he plays linebacker.
And Freddie Mac, you were correct. The Niners have already met with him, so always a possibility. Give us some more speeds at Donald Johnson, and you know what? All of those things are accurate.
Big time.
TCC, we hope you enjoyed this defensive gems breakdown. Let us know in the comment section down below if we missed any gems, if there are any names. We've already gotten a handful from the Cutback crew tonight, so we got some more film to go watch and some more prospects to keep an eye on. But yeah, comment down below if there's even more. If you stumble across a guy between now and draft day that you want everyone to be prepared for, drop in the comment section. We'll watch the film. We'll let you know. And it'll be a lot of fun there. And then they don't want to miss tomorrow night. Fan-controlled mock draft 2.0, the finale of the fan-controlled mock draft, where you're going to make the picks, you're going to tell us what to do, and you're on the clock, TCC.
Yeah, exactly. Tomorrow at 6 o'clock, you're going to be making the selections. So come through. The last mock draft the fans did was absolutely fantastic. Some believe it was actually the best mock draft that's been done the entire time. So can the fans duplicate? What will their ideas be on trades? This is going to be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to the fan-controlled mock draft. So everyone, make sure you're here at 6 o'clock and let your voice be heard.
Oh yeah, we want to hear from you. We want your voice to be heard, Ant. And then, wonderfully, the next day, Wednesday, Ant, the finale, the season finale of 49ers War Room with yours truly. Both of us. I said yours truly and was like, how do I can transition to this? Yours truly, the two of us here, these two gentlemen on the screen, being the GMs and making the picks for the San Francisco 49ers. The 49ers Cutback, I guess, mock draft 1.0, but final version.
It's just the War Room.
It's true. It is just the War Room. And a wonderful 49ers War Room aftermath, Ant, in which it is a call-in show. That's right, TCC. You're going to be able to call in on Zoom and talk with us about War Room, the picks we just made, and what you're excited about heading into the draft on Thursday. But the only way you get to participate in that, Ant, the only way they're going to have the ability to participate in said call-in show is to be a channel member right here on YouTube or join us over on Patreon and then let your voice be heard.
Yeah, exactly. I'm looking forward to. We've had people calling in the last couple of times that we've did it. David Campbell recently called in and we had a great conversation. Of course, KDR always does. So it's going to be fun. I'm looking forward to what everyone thinks about our War Room and how we attack the draft, how we're able to work together, because it's not about just who's picking at 61 or who's picking at 93. We got to be able to work together. When Alex is making the pick, I'm going to be his Adam Peters, to his John Lynch. And then when I'm making the pick, I'm hoping that he's going to be the Adam Peters to my John Lynch.
Gotcha.
And we're going to have a nice fluid relationship so we can put together the best draft that we believe the 49ers can get.
Sure. We don't want any John Harbaughs and Trent Baalke situations going on. We don't want that. And we don't want drafting players that we can't do anything with, that don't fit the scheme, that aren't going to help the team move forward. So we're excited for that. We're excited for the fan-controlled mock draft, and we're excited for the draft party. Tons of great content and great things coming your way, TCC. And the best way to be a part of all of it and to know what's going on is to make sure you're subscribed, hit that notification bell, like the video, share it with the rest of the faithful, and we'll see what happens. And we'll see you for all of the great content we got coming your way, Ant. So many things happening, and an incredible time Friday.
Yeah, can't wait for it. And DJ Davidson, JLE, solid player. We did break him down. He's a good player and is going to go undrafted. Potentially, that could be a guy that the 49ers could bring into camp. So there you go.
There it is. TCC, this was a lot of fun. We enjoyed the conversation. Thank you for stopping by. Thank you for participating. And if you're watching this on replay, Hopefully you like the names. We hope to hear more from you about some more names, and we'll catch you for the fan-controlled mock draft tomorrow night. And until that time, stay safe.
And remember, the right way is always the 49ers way. It's time for War Room.
It's all been building to this. We're the GMs.
We make the selections.
The San Francisco 49ers select.
Special start time.
Wednesday, 6 p.m.
Season 1 finale.